just finished in the classroom at physical therapy school, so hopefully I can contribute to society in that case. Besides that, I think we just kind of did a project on this, kind of making time to, because everyone gets really busy with their time, so just making time to give back to society, whether that be like once a month even, like just go out and serve your society in whatever way. So hopefully I can continue to do that as I've been trying to do my best with it in the past couple of years. So just encouraging people to kind of reach out to others as well and do that.
Good. He took 10 seconds.
He did.
So you'll be left with
Was that
no.
more than a minute? Wow.
Go ahead. That's usually David.
It's actually really good.
My name is Andrew, guys. I guess I'm a recent grad still. I don't know. It's been a year since I last graduated. I work as a biomedical engineer for Alcon. So I guess my contribution is to help people see better, change the world.
You want to stay last or it's up to you?
Yeah, stay alive. Give him.
Okay. Well, I'm Sandra. How I'm contributing. I'm in the military, U.S. Air Force Reserves, but I'm also going to school as an occupational therapist, and I'm doing a side job as a photographer, if anybody needs photography. I also worked as a behavioral therapist for autism and autistic children.
Very expensive.
Okay, so mine's not as interesting as that. I'm just, my name's Katrina. I'm just a college student. I'm trying to be a dentist, so I guess I can contribute in that way.
I'm Karen. I just started college, so I'm studying political science now to hopefully become either a civil rights attorney or an international attorney. Now.
So no contribution.
So that, not much, not really, but
Your first 18 is a
hopefully as I learn more, maybe I can bring more awareness to social issues or such, but for now, no.
You always don't forget the church in the middle of all that.
Yes.
You have to do something for your church.
Okay, so I'm Michael. I never go by that name.
No, sorry.
Michael.
Okay, you can speak louder.
Okay, my name is Michael. I never go by that name. Use some sort of name, but yeah. I'm doing electrical engineering.
Oh, wow.
I'm a sophomore right now, and I got no contribution.
Again, don't forget.
What do you go by?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering.
My name is Michael. Don't call me.
Yeah, my name is Michael. Don't
I figured I only I figured I only had one comment. I already learned it. So.
Who wants to go
What
next?
do you go?
So what do you go by, Mike?
So, yeah.
What do you go by?
Oh, we'll stick with Michael.
I knew that.
I guess we...
So I'm Carlos. I do accounting related work, and I'm planning on becoming a CPA. As far as contributions, I'm still working on that.
You're already there. You're already contributing if you don't notice it. But anyway, go ahead.
Hey, my name is Sarah. I graduated last year from chemical engineering, work at Alcon, and I think the biggest contribution, or the only contribution, is my Sunday school service. I skipped today for this.
I would
By
like
the
you
way.
to continue, go back. Madam.
I'm Stacy. My contribution is to try and be the best wife and mother that I can, so I can raise my son to contribute to our society as well.
And this is the most difficult job, I can guarantee you that.
50% there. Nether, one of the Sunday school teachers here, and contributions. Yes, so I work in the medical field, and I teach Sunday school, and my dad and husband.
Good.
Which one is it harder?
I've really enjoyed work now that I have a kid. Oh, this is my turn. Shit, I was like, where we leave off? My name is Peter. I graduated about 5 or 6 months ago. I've been working in a clinic, running a clinic. I'm a chiropractor for the last 4 months. My main contribution is helping a lot of patients with neuromuscular pain. I love it. They enjoy it. I'd like to think I'm a good son and a good brother. I like to be pretty much someone that encourages people to take care of their health. In a world, in a society where people neglect that, I think it's a huge thing to work on.
Is there anybody we can text to find out if they're a good son and a brother?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you their phone number. They'll listen to my mom.
And a reference letter.
Sunday school teacher, it's up to you if you will.
Paul.
Oh, sorry. Short-sighted.
Hi, I'm Paul. I recently graduated with software engineering degree. I guess my only contribution to the world is to help others in need.
Software is a lot of help for all of us.
I'm studying biochemistry and forensic toxicology. I'm in the United States Navy. That's it.
That's a lot of contribution there. So, Dina, if you want to, it's up to you.
Skip them again.
Ah.
I know you know the back already. You know.
Yeah.
I think he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My name is Eddie. I'm a computer student, so I guess helping people see as well and selling Andrew stuff.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
My name is Marie.
Don't underestimate Eddie.
I am my father's daughter. I want Stacey's job, and that would be my future contributions. And then I'm also a physical therapist, so I like helping people and promoting health as well.
I just want to say that Marie played an important role, critical part in the book I wrote about that I used as a reference. So she helped me a lot with that. So let me tell you one thing. It's very important that for us, there is a reason why we're here in this world, and one of these reasons is to make a living, of course. But sorry, one of those reasons is not to make a living, but to do the kind of things that somehow reflects in what I call the eternal future.
Yeah.
If making a living is one of those things, so be it. So, the first thing that Micah, sorry, you guys, I'm sorry, I didn't forget, it's up to you if you want to introduce yourself.
I think they know us.
They know yourself. Well, they had it several times. One of the reasons that why are we here today? We are here today because there is a need. Do you really agree that there is a need for us to be at church on Sunday? What kind of a need? I see a lot of people coming here, and I'm sorry to say, but socializing or hanging with their friends, or time to reconnect. I'm going to put that aside. That's for another day. Assume that the social part is taken care of, that you meet with your friends. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. And getting together and reconnecting, because we work hard. We deserve to have a good time and reconnect. But is that the primary reason why we come to church on Sunday? Be honest. Because if you're not, then you're wasting our time.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. Excellent question. Excellent response. The primary reason for church is what?
To connect with God.
Hmm?
To connect with God.
Connect with God. Is it important? Why?
Because that's the relationship that we should be striving for throughout all of our lives, because He is what our main focus should be on. If we don't, then there's no point.
Atheists are doing just fine. They're actually very successful people. They're not connecting with anybody.
Are they going to heaven?
They're doing very well. They're very happy people sometimes.
Doesn't that sound very?
I'm not denying your question. You're absolutely good. You're perfect. But
So I think it's just kind of like the whole idea of like eternity starts now kind of thing. Like atheists are happy now, yeah. But like, and I'm not one to judge, but what I'm saying is like, if we could start our relationship with Christ here by coming to church and building that relationship with Him, and then
correct.
it can just form us better.
But my point is different. Why do we have to have a Christ in our life? Let's be serious. Why do we need to read Bible, have Holy Communion? I know we're doing it because some of us are afraid to go to hell. Some of us are because their parents told them to do so. And because, but we really don't really understand it. We're just doing it. It's practice.
It's His wish for us to be in communion with Him. He wants to be with us.
That's a very good response. I think to go one step different, maybe in a different direction, is we need to understand who we are. Who are we? Why are we here? Then we can have an idea of where we're heading. Then we can have an idea of what we need to accomplish. And oh, by the way, the education, the society, the socialization, that's besides the point. That's just a bonus. That's okay. I'm not telling you. That's excellent. But that's not the reason why we're here. One of the things that confuse us human beings is, and the scientists come and tell us, well, you really didn't come from Adam and Eve. You came from a monkey. I have seen a lot of good friends of mine. They're very good churchgoers. They read books and everything, but deep down they don't believe in the 7 days of creation. So that's one thing here. Another thing is the key thing is to understand: is Jesus Christ seriously exist, or he doesn't exist? And if he does exist, what is the purpose of our existence, and what are we doing here? Christ realized that this is a problem since in the Old Testament. If you look carefully at the history of the people in the Old Testament, what is their biggest problem? What is their biggest problem that the people of Israel got into? And I'll get into all that very quickly.
Worshipping idols?
No, I mean, they have seen, they went out with Moses. They have seen the big things that they basically defeated the biggest power in the world at that time, which is Pharaoh. They got rid of him with no weapons. They didn't fight a war, and the next thing we know, that the people of Israel freed themselves from the most powerful man on earth at that time, with no weapons, no military action, the kind of stuff that we see today happening. They were pretty much on their own, were free, just like that. If you look at the history there, here's a group of slaves under a dictator. And how many of us can escape that? None. And all of a sudden they're free. There is a discontinuity there. And the Bible tells us that there was a divine intervention. At the end of the day, you can call it Moses, you can call it anything you want. But if it's not for God's intervention, they will not be free people. In essence, there is a reason, therefore, for us being here. To find out that there is a God, in my opinion. The people of Israel came very close to that. But then what happened? They came back and became distracted with the things of the world all over again. The power, the pleasures of the world, the sins of the world, the kingdoms of the world, and they lost it. God sent them prophets and apostles. Guys, don't forget, if you remember, every time God used to talk to the people of Israel, he brings back the past. He brings back the history, to remind them the discontinuity that got them into freedom, and they keep forgetting because they default to the human old ways of doing things. How many kings that Israel had? Does anybody know? How many kings Israel had after David, the people of Israel? Give me a number, just don't worry. I'm not going to grade you.
13.
40, 50, 60, 70?
13.
30?
13.
Half of that number. Okay, 40. You know how many of them followed the Lord? And he used to tell them, your heart is like David, because David was one of them. After that, 4. 4 out of 40 kings, 10%. 10% of the kings were according to the heart of God, and the other 90% didn't. So what does that tell you? There is a huge problem in us human beings in following God. Because honestly, deep down, either we don't think he exists, or his commandments are not serious, or we're just too busy with life and the beauties and the things that life offers us. And why is that a problem? What's wrong with life and what it's giving us, all the distractions and all the beauty and all the things that life is giving us? What's wrong with that?
Temporary.
It's temporary, and also it takes you away. And how did we end up here? How did we end up in this life?
Through distraction.
Where were we? Where is our original home started? Where did our first parents live? Paradise. This was homeland. This is our homeland, paradise. It's not planet Earth. And we left it. And we left it because of what we did to God. And listen to the sermon. That's another lecture. But something broke. Something broke. We used to be there, and we are no longer there. And the world we live in is a world that has one and only thing in its agenda, is to keep us away from God. That includes, unfortunately, even some of the good stuff. I mean, I'm not telling you that's bad, no. Jobs can be good, but it's a sword with two sharp edges. They can also keep you away from God. A relationship is the same thing. It's a sword with two sharp edges. Everything we do in this life now is a choice we have to make between good and evil, because that's the reason why we ate from the tree, right? We wanted to be like God, knowing good and evil. So what did God tell us? Have it your way. Be like me. Go figure out good from evil. What is that called? When you have to figure out between two things, what is that called?
Discernment.
Discernment. Discernment, or I need, you are free. Why can't you just...
Free will.
Free will. Excellent. Freedom of choice.
And
So once God gave us the idea that you want to be like me, knowing good and evil, that automatically means we have what? Free will. Excellent. And what's the problem with free will?
But we had free will before that.
Correct. And we chose, we made the wrong choices.
Right.
What's the problem with free will?
You can choose wrong.
You can make wrong decisions.
And if you look at historical information, if you look at you guys now went to college, and what do the professors tell you? Let's look at data from the past, how many data points we had on free will. The people who actually use their free will. And if you look at history, how was our performance as human beings? Very bad. We failed by 90%. I'm just using kings of Israel as an example. The prophets, even the apostles. Even Christ was upset with them. He said, until when I'm going to tolerate you? So that is our failure or success rate. Very low, very disappointing. So what did Christ do? Christ came and said, I understand your problem. And by the way, this is pretty much, you can go, I strongly recommend you to go do this homework reading on your own. I'm not going to go over and read this thing for you. You guys are a lot faster and better than me to read this in 2 minutes. But what did Christ do? If you look carefully here, the human dimension, we. By the way, there is another dimension. Obviously, there is the angels, the seraphim, the cherubim, but we're not talking about those. We're talking about us human beings. So before I get into this, how many of you have cars? All of us, right? So what do you do to take care of your car?
Maintenance.
I need to be more precise than maintenance.
Put gas, take care of the oil.
So you go to where? You go to a dealer, or you go, what do you tell him? There's nothing wrong with your car. You just want to go change oil, right? So what does he do for you? No, there's something called multi-point inspection. Because what happens while he is changing oil, he might find something else wrong with your car, such as a bad fuse, or an engine that's about to fail, or an air condition that is not performing at optimum, right? You don't know all these things, but all of these things are going in the background in the shop. I'm assuming that you went to a good dealer, somebody as good as Jesus Christ. In other words, he's not going to lie to you or take you for a ride. And he gives you this report, and before you know it, you went for an oil change, and the next thing you know, you have 5 other things to worry about. Right? I'm saying, assuming him to be a saint or somebody like that. So my point is, even if you look at your car, the only reason why you are here in church today because there is a tool out there, a machine that is working, and every part is doing its job. The oil is doing its job, the engine, the transmission, and I'm talking as something simple, okay? We human beings are nothing but a huge complex engine made up of so many different parts that needs lubrication, assistance, maintenance. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. There is nothing simple about us. We are complicated because we are in the image of God. And I'm using the word complicated in a good way here. We are complex. We are magnificent. So if we sit down and say, okay, can you diagnose for me what an engine is, a car is made of? Well, it's made of an engine, a transmission, brakes. So when mechanical engineers can tell me more, there's something called radiator, suspension, tons of parts. You bring them all together, you have a car. So we sit in our mother's womb for 9 months, and the next thing we know, we have a human being. But it's all coming together. So God, Christ looked at all this. If you just go up a little bit. The human dimension. So if we can say what makes us human beings in a very simple, high level, we are made up of, if you go down, let's go back to page 1, the human dimension. It says in here, we are made up of spiritual, physiological, sociological, emotional, physical. These are pretty much the 5 big ones. You can take each one of these and subdivide it into different. I'm going to let you go on your own and figure out how each and every one is categorized from the right up down. Because it won't take, I won't be able to do that in 40 minutes or so. But the whole idea here is, this is who we are. And each one of them has a function, what we call a design function. So that together, if they're working together, you are a coherent human being able to contribute to your society, to your church, to the world, and maybe one day history will write about you. But without if there is any misfunction in one of these areas, we have an issue. Psychiatrist, you have to go see a psychiatrist. You may have to go see a priest who can never figure you out, no matter how many times you confess. Maybe you have some physical issues, and we can talk about that, or emotional. But none of these things, like a computer, like a car, if there is a default, you have a problem. So what did Christ do? If you go back to the top there. I'm not going to go through the details if we have time. You guys, I hope Mike shared it enough with you that you have read it. So I would love to, if you have read what Mike put in the Facebook, he said in 24.
I put it on the seminary.
And you have questions, we can talk about it, but I'll let you do that on your own. If you look carefully in the Bible, and I just speak Luke 11 and 12 because it's happened that I was reading those at that time, for the last 48 hours. If you look carefully, everything that Christ has been doing in these 4 Gospels is working to help us figure or fix these problems, these areas. So if he tells you a sermon, or he talks to you about a deed, or he gives you a warning or an advice, he is trying to address one of these areas in you to fix you up. He did not come to make miracles and walk on water. If that is of benefit to you, then I would call that maybe emotional. He did not come to just tell you, you shall do this and you shall do that. He came to give you a real life example based on his own humanity, which is made up of all these things, as an example, as a model to follow, so everything in you works properly. So you end up making the right choice, good over evil. It is very easy to go tell someone, يا ولد اسمع الكلام ما تعملش كده. I don't want you to do this, you do that, and walk away. I fixed nothing. I just gave him a set of rules of don't drive 70 miles per hour, drive 50 miles per hour. Okay, did you try to understand why he's driving 50 instead of 70? Is there anything going on here? Yeah, I think maybe the spiritual dimension has a problem. Just like your car. You keep pressing on the brakes and it's not working. It's taking forever to stop. Yeah, because your pads are running out. You never thought about it. You went for oil change only. So the key thing here is what Christ was doing, if you really dissect every chapter, whether it is Luke 11, and by the way, I'm going to leave you to do that for Luke 12, and 13, and 14, and Matthew, and he is always focused on one of these areas, fixing you up. He is the dealer you go to fix your oil changes, but your spiritual oil change, your spiritual transmission, your spiritual brakes. By spiritual brakes, I mean you know when to talk and when not to talk. By spiritual transmission, meaning you know when to forgive and when to maybe fight back or defend. This is an art. You know, not saying anything and speaking too much. You have to know the balance. Everything has to be balanced out. So you are a balanced, functional human being. So it is your job to start diagnose your system, just like they put computers to diagnose your car, to figure out what's wrong with it. And you are 10 times more complex than that. I have a problem with friends. Okay, which one of these ones you need to work on? I have problems with my parents. I have problems at work, in church, this, wife, husband, kids. And then you realize, you know what, everything is fine, but apparently the only one thing is emotional. I'm just giving an example. I am too emotional. That's what's messing up your life. Maybe it's not a good idea. Your car has too much oil. You know that if you put too much oil in your car, it can ruin the engine. You know that, right? So that's why there's a limit. You have to stick in the stick to find out how much oil. Because if you go above that limit, you're actually ruining your engine. Oil is good, but too much of it can ruin your engine. So these are the things that Christ has been working on us since Adam and Eve. When it didn't work out in the Old Testament, he came down himself to show us the way. And he said it, I came to make your life better. He did not come to say, well, what Moses told you is wrong. He did not come to tell you that. He did not come to tell you, oh, by the way, everything that the prophets told you doesn't work. I am the guy who's going to fix it all. No, he said, I came to complete what they have started. The problem is, you humans have a default. Since you went against me, you have a problem. And I told you that. Don't eat from that tree so you don't end up with this problem, and you did, on your own choice. So something in you went wrong, and I'm trying to fix it. So be like me. Remember, Christ said, be perfect just like your Father in heaven is perfect. Seriously? You're asking me to be perfect like you? What is that? Yes, you can. Through me, you can do everything. He actually asked you, now this is, I can't understand yet. I've read the Bible many times, but this I don't understand. Christ said, we can do better than him. You can do better than me. My understanding here, or my explanation of this is, as human beings that have faults, and I'm perfect, and I'm human, I'm fully human, once you do like me, knowing your problems, he basically put us in a level to encourage us to say, if you do just like me, you're already doing something that is awesome. That's really what it is. The key thing here, and I'm sorry to tell you this, that I see it everywhere, especially in the world we live in today, we do not take Jesus Christ seriously. We really don't. We're kidding ourselves. We think he doesn't see it. We think he doesn't know it. No, he does. He knows 10 times more than you do. Something happened to me at work the other day when I got into an argument with other engineers on how to fix a problem. And he started, it's actually somebody I trained. I trained for 2 years, and then all of a sudden he is now telling me how to do it right. My pride didn't go very well there. Because I felt that this is not, he's supposed to be listening when I'm talking. I'm telling you, I'm a human being, I'm confessing to you guys. But then he went a little bit overboard, and I felt like he was just trying to just get me mad and upset. So I went to my car, left work, turned the engine on, and you know how your iPhone gets synchronized with your car, so it automatically plays it. Very, very rarely that, I hear all kinds of music and stuff like that. And very, very rarely, I do have the written Bible, the audio Bible, I listen to once in a while. And I was trying to figure out how I could get even with this guy, how I could go report him, and how, because what he's telling me is not safe, it's not in public safety, interest of public safety. That's what I thought. I was a little bit upset about it. And I'm thinking basically how to, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth on this thing. So the first thing I turn on the engine is who comes out? The voice of Jesus Christ, which is very rarely, in Luke, telling me that if I don't carry my cross and follow him, if I don't know how to forgive, if I don't, this is the audio. So this is Christ talking to you. I wasn't scared because I was very proudful at that instant. I said to myself, Jesus, this is not what I want to hear now. I'm really, this is frustrating to me. This is not helping me. I'm not here to be offering other cheeks and all these nice things you talked about. But by the time I reached home, it's like 45-minute drive, I suddenly realized how awful I was not reflecting Christianity the way it should be. And thanks to Jesus Christ, his voice fixed that for me by telling me, he said, if you want to follow me, deny yourself, carry your cross every day and follow me. If you do not believe that I am, you will die in your own sins. I said, that's enough. I got it. Thank you very much. So my point to you is very simple. Christ knows every second of your life. What you're doing in your backyard, front yard, whether we like it or not, bedroom, whatever. Husband and wife, that's why we have the Holy Spirit. Because that's a blessed relationship. Any other relationship, he doesn't know what that is. This is something that we all have to understand. The relationship between a man and a woman is only one and only one that Christ recognized. Everything he doesn't know, and he sees it, and he knows it, and you have to be aware of that. Based on so many things that you do, all the decisions you make, you get his blessings, or you don't get it. This is a fair deal. He came to us. He told us, I understand your human dimensions, spiritual, physical, psychological, emotional. Basically building a relationship with me, not worrying about needs. Physical is important, by the way. One thing is, the physical part is, Christ created us to have fun. Make no mistake. That's why we have games. That's why we have bodies that like to be athletics. So he's not a boring God at all. He's actually created nature so beautiful. For Satan to enjoy it, or for the animals? No, for us. So that's the physical part. And then comes the psychological, the emotional, and theological. The point I'm trying to make is, work with him. He will fix you up. Work with him. He's not your enemy. Don't waste your time worrying, calling your friends when something goes wrong and complain to the whole world. She did this to me and he did this to me, like what I did. I'm supposedly a Sunday school teacher. I shouldn't be doing that. Wrote a book, and I'm still acting like a beginner. We all are. We are all default. We have a serious problem, but Christ told us, I understand your problems. I understand some of these areas you may have a problem. You have it all in 5 of them, but work with me. I will fix you up. That's what he has been doing in Luke 12. So, what was the problem? And I'm going to finish very quickly. What is the problem with the leadership of Israel? What was their problem with Jesus Christ? You guys read the Bible many times, right? The Pharisees and the scribes.
Right.
What was their biggest problem? I need somebody. Should I pick somebody? Volunteers or whatever?
Weren't they just like not practicing? Like they knew all the words and all this, like they like memorized everything.
No, I want you to answer it with respect to these. What kind of problems they had in these 5 areas? Let's just be specific.
Well, with all of them, I mean, starting from spiritual, there was really not a relationship with Christ. I mean, they knew the word, but they didn't practice it.
But at that time, there was no
There was
Christ.
no Christ.
There was no Christ.
Christianity,
What was their problem with spiritual?
They didn't know who Christ was.
They just lived by the
If
word of Moses.
anybody had to know who Jesus Christ is, who should have been that person?
The
Them.
Pharisees.
Why? Because he told them, I'm coming. He had been telling them for 5,000 years. So right there was a huge problem. So what did they do? When Christ goes and heals somebody, instead of staying in their synagogues, instead of staying in their synagogues and helping people, they abandoned these people. They went after him and complaining that he's doing it on a Sabbath. They had problems everywhere. They were very emotional. They have no feelings for the weak and the irrelevant among them. Sociological, it's all over the place. They thought they're gods on earth. Physiological, it's everything that is combined. And the physical and all of that. So none of these areas were addressed. And what did Jesus Christ do? How did he fix that problem? He ended up with a bunch of human beings that have all kinds of problems. So what did he tell them? excellent. In one whole chapter, he rebuked them like never before. You know why? Why? Why wasn't he nice to them? Did they work? Actually, Christ was nice to them so many times. And when nothing worked, he finally gave them their judgment. While they don't have to die to know where they're going to end up, they were already judged. It's over. They didn't realize at that moment it was all over for them. It was a done deal. They never repented. You don't want to get there. They are human beings like you and me. You're not any special. But you don't want to get there. That is the sad story or the bad news of this class. Christ is very good. He's the best we can ever ask for. But there is a limit. And you don't want to get there. That is the other side of the coin. You can insist on coming to church and doing nothing else. You can insist on living, waking up in the morning, go to school, a day in, day out, no change. Doesn't matter how many times he talk to you, there is no change. The bad habits continue. Eventually, he will give you what he gave to the Pharisees and the scribes and many, many people before them, same thing. So there is a danger. The bad news is, there is danger, yes. Christianity is not 100% safe religion. It carries its own dangers. And I'm sorry to say that, but it is what it is. That's why there is hell. And that's why he said, do not be afraid of the people who will kill you, which we are always talk about in social media. The Muslims did this to us. The Brotherhood did this to us. ISIS did this to us. And Christ tells us, do not be afraid of these people. Be afraid of me. Not them, me. Why, Lord? Because I have the power to put you in Hades. They don't. I do. Think about it. There is Hades. And he is the one control both. Hades is not for all those atheists and all the people who don't recognize his divinity. And I'm not going to mention names here or be specific. But Christians too. I'm not here to scare you. But there are Christians in hell. So what happened there? To me, this is much more worse than somebody, an atheist, who ended up there that we already know. Because they did not take him seriously. Don't think coming to church and having Holy Communion and doing all these things is going to guarantee you that Christ is going to be very happy. No. It's a lot deeper than that. You need all these things, absolutely. But at the end of the day, Christ wants to see the heart. Are you with me or against me? He told that to the disciples many times. Don't forget that one of these disciples who was with him all the time lost it. That's 10% loss. You can say less than 10, 8%, 1 out of 12. 1 out of 10 in the kings of Israel made it, 1 out of 10. And 1 out of 12 in his disciples made it. But there is that possibility of that 1% or 10% or 8%, whatever you want to call it. You don't want to be in there. And you have work to do. We all have work to do. You have to take Christ seriously. That's it. So if you guys have anything to say, we can go over this material. I recommend that you read this Luke 12 and try to diagnose it the way I did with Luke 11. And tell me if you're, and feel free to contact me anytime. You guys don't know my contact informations. And if you have any questions regarding this human dimensions, I discussed it very at length in this reference at the end. Just feel free to call me. Don't hesitate. Send me a text or message or email. Say I didn't really understand that part, but it's all really explained quite in detail as in that reference. So I need feedback. So anything you want to say, go ahead.
Quick question. When you alluded to your example from work, I think it sometimes kind of sneaks up on us, and I want to get back to be able to differentiate between being prideful and discernment. I mean, you started out by saying, you know what, there's a safety issue. So you believed in what you believed in from based on your profession and your knowledge and things like that. But at the same time, you later on mentioned, prideful. So how were you able to distinguish between the two?
The safety issue is not critical. We could have sorted out if there was some kind of good, I would say, good blood among us. If the plant safety was never, if it was an issue, we are required by law to report it and to talk about it. But sometimes we make this issue as bigger than what it is just because something else is going on. Like, for example, you could have a situation between you and your wife. The smallest thing that a kid does becomes a big issue all of a sudden. But it's not that your kid it's fixable. If you are talking to your wife in a nicer way, or she's talking to you in a nicer way, this would not have been a problem. So that's my point. It's not a critical, it's something that was just a trigger for no reason. The plan is safe. His idea was not against safety. It's how we address the idea different ways. I wanted my way to fix it versus his way to fix it. So we were both.
So it was pride because you wanted to use that as an excuse.
I want to take the credit for fixing the problem, not him, and vice versa. But this is who am I. This is what's going on in my mind all the time as human beings. And when you're not keeping an eye on it, it will take over from you. So that's my point. Is pride is there. Pride is always there, and you have to keep it under control. You want a question?
What was the outcome?
The outcome is that all what you guys going to remember from this class?
Well, when you start with nuclear safety,
he came around and said, I should have given you he was the right person. He did the right thing. He said, you will be the one solving this problem. It's not me. You had the right idea. He actually apologized, which made me feel very bad. He was a better Christian than me. What am I? I don't think he's as Christian or follows the church. He's just, the Americans are, the one thing good about Americans is they know how to say, I'm sorry. We struggle with that sometimes. It's a cultural thing.
Can I add something? Well, I think you're selling yourself short. I think probably if you had continued and reacted how you wanted to initially, he would have stood his ground and been more aggressive.
Yes.
But you being his mentor and you didn't react in that way allowed him not only to rethink but to reconsider and to so how we act can also fuel the other person.
You hit the nail on the head.
Or
Thank
can
you.
humble the other person. So I think
you hit the nail on the head. I didn't want to say it, but that's what happened.
You're right. And I just wanted to add one other thing that which you capture so well here is that we are all of those dimensions, physical, psychological, and when we understand that God created us that way, a lot of times we recognize that there's a problem within one of those things, and then instead of going to the mechanic, like your car analogy, we try and fix it on ourselves, and it fails, miserably, and it makes the problem worse. Like, does your do-it-yourself job look like you did it yourself? It's really bad. But when we know that God created us that way, and we know that He deals with it, and He wants us to come to Him when we have those issues, we put our hand back in our life back in the Creator's hands, and we come to Him and say, "You created me. You're responsible for me. I'm suffering emotionally, physically, psychologically, socially, whatever it is." And I think that what did we say in the very beginning? Some people said, "Well, God loves us, or He created us to have a relationship with Him," as if He has the need. And we know, and we pray, like in the Gregorian liturgy, that it is not you who needs my servitude, but I who needs your lordship. Why? Because I'm physical, and all of these things that He created that only He can fill. So it is us who need Him. And even the atheist who spends all this time, he has a need. He's trying to answer it outside of God. But God created each of us to have that need to search for Him. Even when Moses left and they created an idol, why did they create the idol? Because there's an emptiness. We need God there. And when we fill it in the wrong way, with idols and all the things of the world, then we are left even emptier. But it's important for us through our life when we have challenges in those 5 areas to go back to who created us, who's the only one that can solve all those areas. And that actually, that reliance on Him is what grows the connection with God, and that relationship becomes stronger when we rely on Him for each of those.
You know, one of the things that you just, Suzette said it really well.
Thank you, Suzette.
You know, Satan works 24/7. I mean, you know, from the minute we wake up to the minute that we put our heads down, I mean, it's like there's constant forces.
I think he takes off on Labor Weekend.
You think so?
I'm
I'm not sure, but
but
I mean, anything that you touch. I mean, whether you put the news on, whether you watch the funerals, or, you know, the past weekend with McCain and Aretha Franklin. I mean, there's some horrible things going on visibly during the middle of the funeral, and you look at just social media. You look at work. When you think you're just doing something productive, there's constant forces that are working against us. And if we think that we're strong enough to be able to battle these forces on our own, we're gravely mistaken. So one of the things that, you know, she just touched on is that we have to know that we have to put our hands, mind, soul, everything with Him to guide us, because we cannot do it.
When you're talking about the human beings and the defaults that may exist in different areas, or how when we are fault we need to go back to that, or how Satan is working, it just, Saint Augustine of Hippo, he summarizes it just very well, and when he says, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they find rest in you." So we will continue to be restless with all these things till we hook that complex machine you're talking about, made of all these components, into that Creator's.
He's the guy who manufactured
diagnostic machine that will tell us where the restlessness is coming from. But we will continue to be restless till we find our rest in Him. All these things don't fill us up. None of it fills us up.
You want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, to go off of that, this is actually a question. You did mention diagnosing ourselves and trying to figure out of those 5 criteria, I guess, in a more practical way, what can we fix, and so that we can achieve that, you know, final goal. And a lot of times, whenever I'm assuming that by diagnosing ourselves, we go to these, you know, meetings and go to church and participate in the sacraments and things like that. But a lot of times, I feel like we can be blind to it, you know, blind to our own problems. And so, what do you recommend, and what is the strategy that we can go about doing to?
That was actually the concluding remark. I left that in you. So straight. It's a good thing that you led to this. If you look carefully here, what is Luke 11 doing? If you take every one of these is something, the words of Christ, which if you go into this Bible, they are marked in red. So the answer is, if you want to get in closed doors, just you and the Lord, He doesn't have to appear to talk to you, sit next to a next to a chair next to you to tell you how to work with you, like the mechanic. Because at the end of the day, there's only one mechanic that can fix us. Unlike our cars, and that's just something I want to make clear, there are 500 mechanics out there. Dallas Fort Worth may have thousands. But for us, there's only one. We can't go anywhere else, which is one person who created us. These cars are manufactured by 5,000 other companies. There's only one manufacturer. So that's God. We all agree that there's only one mechanic. What are they? What is the church doing? Everyone else in the church, they're leading you to that mechanic at the end of the day. They're not mechanics themselves, because they are human beings like us. They too have their own things, but they don't share it with you. Even the highest person. For example, I heard that Pope Shenouda has his own priest that he confessed to, because we're all like that. So the answer is very simple. Take the simplest thing, the most practical thing I can tell you. You go to the 4 Gospels, and there's a point why I mentioned it here. You go to the 4 Gospels, there will always be something Christ talked about that addresses one of those areas. I gave you Luke 11 as an example, and I gave you Luke 12 as a homework. If you get used to understanding and differentiating, okay, he said this in this paragraph. What is he trying to do? He's trying, if you look carefully, there's somebody that was sick. In another case, he was addressing a social issue in one of these paragraphs. See, if you can go test it. I may be wrong. I may have categorized them wrong. But if you go look at each one of these stories, he's addressing one of those issues. It's that simple. See what he said. He gave you the answer right there. The thing about Christ, if you look carefully, he identifies the problem, followed by the solution. Never leaves you hanging. You go through all the 4 Gospels, it's the same thing over and over again, written by a different apostle in a different way from a different angle, but the result is the same. In case you didn't get it in Luke 11:15, when he wanted to talk about a physical problem, maybe you will find it explained differently in Matthew 6:12 or John. That's it. Until you take this book seriously and not shelve it in a library somewhere at home, never look at it for the rest of your life, or pretend you have a problem. Because the maintenance manual for fixing you is this book. How many times you open your car and say, refer to your maintenance manual for maintenance? How many times? What do the mechanics do, by the way, when you take your car? You know what they do? They go to the car, pull the glove compartment, open the maintenance manual of the car, and go fix your car. Actually, I lost my manual because of that. I once went to a dealer, never found the manual. Asked him where, he said, we lost it. We forgot to put it back. They paid to order one. It cost about $100 to get a new manual. But even then, they have to find out what Ford did or how they manufactured the cars. So at the end of the day, this is your manufacturer, and this is his manual. And if you have a problem, go read his manual so you know how to fix it. It's that simple. And he kept it very simple. You have 4 Gospels to worry about. What about the rest of the Bible? Well, if you want to know so many other things that substantiate the 4 Gospels, go read it. Go read the whole Bible is the manual. But that may be too much for you. Maybe a saint like St. Anthony can deal with it. I don't think I can deal with it. I'm a Sunday school teacher for the last 40 years. No, I'm very happy with the 4 Gospels, and if I need more information, I go to other places. And there's plenty in the epistles, plenty of information there. This is not an obsolete document like what everybody's telling you nowadays. How many times, guys, this became our manual and Bible, a fake manual? How many times today, and hours we spend on this thing, totally fake? And what is Satan doing? Extremely happy that he found a way to get us away from the real fixing manual. And he succeeded. Do you agree? Do you agree? I see a lot of people in Starbucks, what are they doing? In aeroplanes. I am one of them. He is trying to take me away from there. So I ended up putting the Bible here, but unfortunately there are too many things in there that I don't have time for that app. That's a fact of life. Unfortunately, social media is taking over. But remember, just remember, don't forget, 10% did not make it. One of the 12 did not make it, and we're no different. We're no different.
Very good. Thank you, Romas.
Sorry, I don't mean to ruin your weekend.
I got you some friends now.
If you all didn't see it, I posted the human dimension summary that Ramesh provided us on our Facebook website, and as well, I also put the Love and Retreat seminar that's coming out, I think, September 22nd, 23rd. So if anybody wants to sign up for it, it's for singles and young couples and those that are engaged and young married couples as well. So you can find that on our Facebook page. All right. Thanks, guys. Let's pray.
Thank you, everybody. You all have a piece of paper and a pen. We're going to be putting together